Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second discussion of The Fugitive Prince, or there's no the, it's just Fugitive Prince, which is the fourth book of The Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurts. We are reading 3 chapters every 2 weeks and meeting every 2 weeks for discussion as well. These usually go up around the Wednesday or Thursday of the week on several of our channels. Where choose your favorite and watch from there if you're reading along with us. And Chibi Po, would you like to start us off with introductions?
Sure. I'm Chibi Po, longtime reader and lurker around on page chewing. And I'm happy to be here. Alphabetically, I'm going to pick Robin.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Robin from Bookends and Biscuits, which is the name of my YouTube channel. Also a lurker on the Page 2 forums. So, yeah. I'll just let it skip around.
That's at me.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm Jared, the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel and page chewing forum hunter.
Nice.
We'll go on to Chris next.
Yeah, my name's Chris Mullen. I have a YouTube channel by the same name, and I sometimes, though not too much recently, because my brain just won't allow me to do anything else but work though with hunt page tune forms as well.
So Chibi Po is picking by alphabetical order of channel names, right?
I was very confused.
Sure.
I was like, wait a second.
my alphabet is, I don't know. Yeah, we'll go with that. I'm like, I'm just gonna lay out, like here's the alphabet. I'm gonna like kick the table over. What comes up first?
All right, so what did you guys think? Arathon went and came back. I was looking forward to him spending time at the place that he went to, but he came back immediately. What
It was 3 years.
It was, well, in reader time.
Yeah. Yes, that was. Yeah, we didn't get much of his journey. I guess that it wasn't like the one of the important events that's getting relayed to us here through the narration, the history telling, that we were introduced to way back in the prologue in Curse of the Mistwraith. So we jumped 3 years ahead, and we're getting to Arathon comes back, and I forget the town he's in when we start off here. Chibi Po, you probably know, right?
Well, we I just wanted to, since we're on that, and they, opens up on the shores of Caithter, and there's a few important things there. But I like Dakar's little tidbit here where he's like, yeah, this entire continent has basically been scorched dead for longer than known history. Which is like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, half a globe away. Yeah.
That the Fellowship, didn't tell him, because I think there's a mention in one of the previous chapters where the Fellowship knew that he wasn't going to find anything there.
Yeah.
And, didn't tell him, because they were stalling for time.
That's right. The Mad Prophet did not care to answer the question of why he, of how long they knew that there's no refuge over there. Yeah.
Yeah, because I found it interesting, because as you said, it was very much like he was there and then they were like, oh, there's nothing here, let's go. Obviously in that 3 years they've been searching around, but she just described it in a very similar way as to when we were already described it, when we heard about it from the Seven, what were they called? Terrible with names. So I found that quite interesting, because it was just kind of like a very brief overview of, oh yeah, we kind of put you on a little chase because we needed to waste some time, sort of thing, and then that was it. So like you said, it wasn't very descriptive, like what they hadn't found, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do like Arathon's, and it's kind of underlines that, yes, they're incredibly knowledgeable and everything, but it kind of underscores that if you're looking at it from a smaller perspective, like Arathan, he's like, yeah, if they needed to buy time, that's great, but I could have been doing something else other than wasting 3 years of nothing and been working on whatever his plans are, and spent more time on that. And then Dakar's little excursion. Did you pay attention to those?
Yeah, he does a lot of scrying, right? And can't come up with an answer for what would help Arathon not be burned at the stake.
Yeah, or trying to foresee what Jared had seen,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and instead he gets a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
he gets a bunch
unicorn.
of stuff. Yeah.
Important later.
Yeah, I did also like the description there of when he's talking about his prophecies, he's basically reaffirming the fact that yes, all of this could come true, or actually you could get caught in a storm and then that would change everything and it wouldn't be the truth anymore. And I kind of liked that concept that not everything's set in stone, like it's all very fluid, which I kind of enjoyed.
Yeah, the line that I like was he stated Arathon is too strongly fated, and so it's giving him so many
Multiple things.
what do you call those? Yeah, so many possibilities, with the prophecy
and events. It's not just that it was going to come to one thing, like Jarrett kind of thought it was just going to be involved in so many things. I actually think this whole set of 3 chapters plays with this idea of fate, and actually a lot of people making decisions about things that are fated to happen and that are tied to people's kind of stories, but that actually that's kind of folly because they're all doing that. Because one person makes the decision to, I'm going to put this in motion, then somebody else will have to respond in kind. And I think all of that's really interesting.
Yeah. I've said this before. I love the way the series does prophecy and foretelling. I desperately hate it when the knowing of what's going to happen is what brings about the events. Like there's maybe 1 or 2 books that do it sensibly, but mostly I'm like, what was the point of that prophecy? Just to make this happen? But I love how prophecies are used here and foretelling. And I don't think I've seen an instance so far where the knowledge of an event is what makes it happen. And the one with the Moriel Prime is a little iffy, but I feel like we're going to come clean from that one as well.
I know that's much later in these chapters, but that was so good. So good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then but the one thing, like you said, he could follow, got blown offshore, but he foresees the possibility of Arathan encountering a unicorn.
But the unicorn will want to
The unicorn doesn't seem very happy.
No, he said it's going to gorge him with his
horn.
horn.
That's an unhappy unicorn.
not a happy dude.
It's thoughts. He was going to engorge him with his thoughts. Which is very brave, Ian.
That was interesting because, was it in the previous section or maybe it was before when Dakar tells Arathon that there are holes in what the Fellowship can see, and that's where they think the Paravians are. When they cast the strands, I don't remember exactly what that was, but there are some things that the Fellowship can't predict or foresee because of the strands by the Paravians. Like they basically can't envision anything that they can do, but Dakar can apparently, or at least as it relates to Arathon. So maybe his prophecy or sight is different from what the Fellowship do with the strands, it seems like.
Yeah, his he gets like manifests in one of 3 ways. He has the prophecies that he's given out, like the Black Rose prophecy. And the one forecast dish the heirs to feed. Then he has just crazy visions like he's got here, And then the other way it can pop up is he'll foresee something, but he won't remember it. You know, he may, shout it out, exactly what everything that happens. The only one of them that's like a definite is if he doesn't remember it. After he knows he's done something, but he doesn't remember what it was. Then that means it's something that will happen. It isn't a, like knowledge of it will make it happen. It's just, he's foreseeing something that absolutely will happen.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't pick up on that. That's very interesting.
But all the ones he got here, since he remembers them, he's just like, they're just things that could happen, but I have no idea when or where or any context for them, because beyond that
was the arrow thing at the end of Warhost, was that one that he didn't remember, or was it?
I think he remembered the arrow one. He sort of thought about it for a very long time and plotted around it, right?
Yeah.
The one that I recall he didn't remember was him predicting what will happen between Lysair and Arathon during his coronation ceremony in the first book.
Oh, right.
Arathon hears and then he leaves to do something about it. But I think we still don't know what it was Dakar said that time.
I remember on that one, he basically foretold what was going to happen there in the stairs when Lysair, called him, called out Arathon and, tossed the curse at him and everything. But then he's just like, wait, what did I do? What did I foresee? And Arathon's too freaked out to, waste time telling him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the arrow one, I think that the whole point, it didn't necessarily come true because he knew about it, he could affect it, and I think that's what it means. Like if he doesn't hear it, then it's going to come true. But that was one where he'd seen it, so he could make it so or not. I think.
Yeah,
and he did affect it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then he decided, nope, I got to change that.
Yeah, exactly. On another front, I guess this is this. I know I missed the conversations, but even just going into this book, like having like really disliked Dakar and not understanding him, just him becoming one of my favorite characters is just really mind-boggling to me. And that just goes on and on through this book as well. I just think he's complex, very misunderstood, but a much better character now. You've got more understanding of what on earth he's from and about. So
Yeah.
He's sort of become the voice of reason. Immediately, like he's the person you kind of go to go, oh, the cartel is what's happening here. Like he sits in the bar, kind of watching everything that's happening, and kind of we see what's happening through his eyes and kind of understand, even though at other times it's like he's just blind drunk.
Yeah.
And some of that's still humorous, as you know.
Yeah, and I like that it's touched on. It's like, yeah, he's drunk and wastrel and everything, but like the earlier bits with early chapters with Jarrett, where he's just like, even Jarrett's like, oh, wow, something's changed him because he could have put me in my place at any time.
Yeah. And how is he so good with women?
Years and centuries of experience.
That's the trick. God damn it, right?
He's got to live long enough.
Yeah, in this one, there's even the part where he's again, we're skipping ahead, but later on when they're in the tavern and he's just got the lady on his lap and stuff, and I'm like, is he just really good at speaking? Like what?
Well, yeah, some of them, it's probably also too, he pays them.
Yeah.
In some instances, but he also admits, like back in Warhost when they're doing the healing, where he's like, yeah, I know, he basically is like, thinking he's like, I know like 564, thousand, ways to make a woman, please a woman, but I can't figure out how to stop this little girl from running off and
Oh yeah.
Chris is counting.
He's like, I know how to do all this self-destructive stuff, and I don't know how to curb the same impulses in a kid.
No, fair play to him. Fair play to him. I guess that's his hobby. Is it like you do something for 10,000 hours and you're you're a master at
Absolutely,
it?
master.
Yeah, on that subject, I loved how Dakar took care of Arathon. I think there's this section immediately after his crying when is it Riverton in this chapter, I guess, when after he's still reeling from watching Arathon hurt in his crying, and then when Arathon comes, he's still like jarred, all those descriptions, and then later when Arathon sings that lament at the inn, Dakar's telling Carol, you need to help me watch Arathon tonight because I know he's going to have those nightmares again. I love that, like we were introduced to it sort of in the previous 3 chapters that we read, how Dakar's been taking care of Arathon, and it's been 3 years since, and it's still one that Arathon's still deeply grieving what happened in the previous battle, and that Dakar is still taking such good care of him. Like, that I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I know we kind of glossed over it in the last one, but because we were doing all the talk about less air, but just in the last one where Arathon is just like super depressed and lashing out at everybody, like the whole thing with Jarrett, and he's just like being really mean to him because he's just trying to drive him away. He's like, no, get away.
And we had Kale return too, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's even joining in with helping out the same way with like Dakar is, and he's even telling Arathon he's gonna be there. The Arathon wants him to go away originally, and so he's putting up that same kind of front that following Dakar's example, I guess.
You get that really cool scene when he does wake up, or when he doesn't wake up, he's sleepwalking, I guess, essentially. But it sounds like he's being somewhat controlled by the curse while he's asleep. And then you see that he gets his mage sight back, or not mage sight, but like he gets his abilities back, but only when he's asleep. And they have that whole thing about the fact that he's managed to subvert or go around his own issues that he's struggling with. So it comes back. So I thought that was really well done, and that whole fight scene was quite entertaining. How like they're trying to stop him from going downstairs and end up just being smacked over the head, and it was quite a fun but if quite serious kind of scene. Sort of how she played it out. I thought it was quite good,
and also terrifying, right? That the mistake can make, like, Arathon can't use his mate side, but the mistake can make him and clearly do things that he probably wouldn't want to himself. That was a terrifying scene also, for sure.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to have some ramifications
Yeah.
further on. Because that's I have a feeling that we're not being shown that for just as a fun scene or an interesting action scene or something. I have a feeling that's going to come up again later.
No, I fully agree. But also there was that duality later on when you get Lysair talking about how he doesn't like to go to sleep in the dark because that sets off the curse for him, or even more so. So I think both when they're asleep, they're both struggling more so with the curse, and it's control over them.
But it also gave a reason for Arathon's haste when he's saying, like, he can feel he's devolving, and that actually while he's got control of his senses, when everybody's saying, I think we should just hide for a while or stay clear, and he's going, no, we need to do this now because while I'm of right mind, these decisions need to happen now, regardless of the 500 years long that I'm going to live.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting in this chapter how Mern Bridian Espridian is still sending notes. He's still reporting on Lysair's movements, and so he's still loyal after these 3 years as well. And that's actually just a little note that she had in there that just reinforced that.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Uh, oh yeah. So when the incident or the scene with Arathon started, his discomfort, and we're told throughout that Dakar is feeling a sense of discomfort through their travels, right? And I assume it's because of what Traps Muriel has set for all of them, possibly. So the beginning of that scene, I thought it was some of that come into play, but it was just Arathon and wrestling with the curse. So I thought that was interesting. Did you guys read it that way as well, or was I just looking for clues of how Muriel's what trap would look like, and like I read into that too much?
There's a moment or two, I think, little things that, like, when she's, setting up the um her big, excuse me, or her big, trap, um, where, just like little things, cross this bridge, kind of things where you can see it's like, oh yeah, that's one of those moments. Uh, and I did want to go there, but did you? One last thing with the before the everything goes back, the whole bit after he's talking to Dakar, after the whole prophecies, and you know, uh, Aerithon finally tells Dakar / Dakar asks him about, why, what it was that got him to agree to the blood oath.
Oh yes.
And then Dakar's like, yeah, they've been building wards, and like things to wrap around the whole planet because they're that terrified to keep the mist wraith out. If it happens to
Mm-hmm.
head out into space and come there, which means that wherever the gate world goes, it's somewhere out in space.
I did not catch that.
Yeah, it's for your copy, it's on page 171. Jared.
And what's it on? This?
Immediately looking it up.
Well, yeah.
What's it? It's
Oh yeah, building the wards. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's just it. There's so much to.
It took me quite a long time to realize what they had asked him to. But basically, they bound him so he didn't commit suicide, right? That's what that whole thing was. Because it took me quite a while to kind of like understand what they had bound him to do. But I think you can understand because he's a very like emotional person that he would see that maybe it would be better off if he was dead or whatever. So it's kind of a nice way of like cutting that out.
Yeah, that actually just kind of struck me because in that scene, when Dakar asks him, it's like, how can you live like this? And Aerithon outright tells him, no, I would have committed suicide already
if it wasn't for this.
if I wasn't held to this.
Yeah, it might have been like suicide by, attacking people or what have you,
or despairing, wasting away because it's like, no, I can't deal with this anymore. Because he says, what's his exact word? How can you live self-aware as you are of the fate that hangs on your choices? And he says, I wouldn't. Just admits it outright.
But it also strikes me that it was necessary because of Arathon's compassion. That actually he would have, without the bond, have taken action on that way earlier. And it sort of, again, makes complete sense. In the same way that, Lysair's form of justice still guides, regardless of the curse or not, guides an awful lot of his decisions. They're sort of slaves to who they are as people, regardless of anything else, and they need outside interference all the time to kind of keep them right. Arathorn's lucky that he seems to have this strong group of people around him, whether it's the Fellowship from the outside or the cards that around him. And Lysair, again, as talked about, is so alone at this stage, like completely alone at this stage, and he hasn't got a council. And the Deegan, who was there, who did cause all the deaths last time by his actions, but his council's completely gone, and even Talos away as well.
Yeah. Because Lysair arrives in Newtown in this chapter, and he actually he rescues a boy from like some kind of mob justice,
Wait,
And he gets like a bunch of hails, hail the prince and hail this and that and all that stuff.
are you
And,
just gonna skip over his entrance into that town? That was an insane entrance.
It
What the
was an
flip?
insane entrance, yeah.
He just like turns up in the middle of the night and makes a massive firework light show.
Yeah.
But
wasn't
given
he also
I was going to say, but at the moment, like witchcraft and magic is sort of outlawed by his own hand, and yet he's walking in the middle of town and putting on fireworks shows for people in this kind of like almost like infuriating show of magic. And even he turns turncoat by the end when he gets visited by the Coriani to say, actually, maybe magic's not all bad because I can use it. It's so hateful. And a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I will decide what magic is good or not.
Well, yeah.
And it will be for reasons that are convenient to me.
In his mind, I'm not so sure that he considers what he's doing magic. I think it's
that's true.
he has the righteous power, so to speak, whereas everybody else is doing bad magic stuff.
Various.
Yeah.
Well,
His is basically God's light, no?
They're kind of the same mindset that the Coriani kind of have about things, like in the earlier chapters where she's like, all this, the planet and whatnot is just inanimate matter. We don't care about it, and he's not, because he's always on about power to upset the natural order. And I'm like, it's the middle of the night and you just lit everything up, like plants and everything that's gonna screw with them. But you're like, oh, I'm not upsetting, but he's like, I'm just upsetting some human beings. I'm not upsetting the natural order. It doesn't matter.
And also, they didn't have to sit through a speech. Essentially, that was what that was for.
That I related to.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the other part that I wanted to bring attention to. It's like, are we sure that Muriel's in her right mind?
No, I'm not sure.
I don't.
Well, not only Muriel, even Lorenda, and even Lorenda's self-referential enough to know that the things that she's doing is fueled by her own version of self-loathing in a lot of ways.
Yeah. The thing we talked about last time, where someone who's so that whether Lorenda's ambition is considered a flaw or not by the Coriani, it seems like she hid that somehow.
Yeah, exactly. That I was reading that like, so she's like keeps it to herself.
Yeah, well, it's obvious. But how do you hide ambition like that? Yeah.
Well, that comes into play in like in chapter 6, at the beginning of chapter 6 is when she's attempting to ascertain what happened to Muriel Prime. There was actually a boatload of characterization in that section about Lorenda. And you got like a really good glimpse of all her motivations and goals right there.
Yeah.
And it was and I did wonder that same thing that you just said, Varsha, about how can she hide that to be accepted as the next prime, because aren't you supposed to be like pure of thought or heart or whatever in order to get that position, but I don't remember whether or not, I mean, I know why she was going in there, but I don't remember if Muriel was completely finished or if she was still in the throes of that spell she was trying to cast.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robin.
That's good. No, sorry, I've got back motorbikes making noises. But so basically the end there, she has to make a choice because apparently everyone's in love with him and it's going to ruin her whole life.
That's right.
Yeah. So she has to choose with her becoming completely undone and having this guy that can bring her to her knees at some point in the future by saving the Muriel Prime's life and bringing the spell to an end. Or she has to decide to have an understanding that she's never going to be as powerful as the Prime because she hasn't learnt everything yet, but have this man, Arathon, be taken out of the equation so no one ever sees her weakness. And she chooses to let the spell continue. So the prime, I assume, will be consumed by that, essentially, in the spell.
Right. Yeah.
And then make sure that Arathon isn't around, so she's not going to fall madly in love with him and lose becoming the prime.
Well,
I was like...
there was a great line that went with what you're just saying there, Robin, was his existence was a threat to unstring heart and mind, then whirl her like a moth to his brainless immolation in a lantern flame. And I was just like, that's a great image right there.
I wonder how much of this is because I just watched Jose's video earlier on about his romance novels that he's reading. It's just kind of like Janny's tribute to romance novels in some ways, of her burgeoning like love that she's denying herself, and that kind of gives, you know, great drama in this, and like even the fact when Lorenda goes and examines Muriel's spell, that she kind of thinks, oh, I can improve this. You know, she has this kind of thing of, I'm going to twist this and make it a bit more, because of kind of her own ambition and kind of ideas about what she thinks, who she is and what she could do. Really fascinating chapter. Yeah.
I love that whole thing. I love the building up of the spell by the prime and how they went through it, and I love the intricacies of it, and how it was described that she was tweaking this here and then that would happen, but she'd also have to hide it from Dakar, so she had to do this and this. The two initiates that had to go in there with her to use their power, I thought was really well done. The coming into it where she comes back when she's not sure if she's alive or not, and having to explore what the spell actually is for. But yeah, and then my favorite is still just that apparently all the, how is it, Korathai? I can't say it, are in love with him, but unbeknownst, they've got, like, obviously not being able to have, they're a little bit repressed is how I keep it. And I still think, as a side note in romance things, that there's still a little bit of an idea that actually, what's Lysair's wife called?
Talent.
That she may run off and get with Arathon at some point, in a reflection of what happened to their parents. I still think that's going to happen.
Well, is that something you want to happen? Is that something you're interjecting? Said that would be, yeah. No, that's what I thought.
Well, there is a note in like one of those, the news item at the end of chapter 4, where Arathon, I think, seeks to use her
just to
at
see
some point.
But it seems like he's worried about her.
Yeah, he is.
So I'm like, well,
that's his compassion. That's just compassion.
He's worried about everybody.
He's not necessarily a toxic male. He can just be worried about people because he's a good guy. He doesn't have to have
True.
I love that you call these news items, Jack.
It's like tomorrow's newspaper headlines today. I like that character.
Every time I get to the end of a chapter, I'm like, you know, today's news, you know.
To be fair, it was only those news items, the one with Allura and looking at the 5-year-old dark-haired boy, that it's the first time I realized there was so much time had passed in the chapters. That was because I was going, who is this kid?
Yep.
Who could it possibly be? Like, did she have a secret love child with Arathon? Well, I then remembered. That was...
You forgot the birthing scene at the beginning.
And I was like, all right, time has passed. Okay, I always miss that stuff.
It is interesting that she's training that kid to ride horses and stuff like that. So she's very involved in his life, and and she's still eventually going to have to make some sort of horrible choice.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, but another good example of, Janny talks about this all the time, the characters that we don't see during these periods are all doing something at the time. You know, there's nobody goes missing from the story completely, and I think this is kind of the things that she's going to refer to later, to say what were they doing in this 5 years. And in this case, we get an idea of what Laura's doing, and we get obviously less knowledge of what the Fellowship are doing at any given time, but again, that's where the interest comes.
Yeah.
No, they very much feel like, they don't feel like NPCs. They feel like their own characters with their own lives that are just happening and you're not seeing. So that she's done that very well, actually. I fully agree with that.
Yeah, they're not hitting, they're not just standing there idling, like in a video game.
Yeah. Waiting for you to turn up and say their 2 lines.
Yeah.
I took an arrow to the knee. Yeah.
Are you still playing? What was I going to say? Yeah, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but since we're talking about Ilera, Asandi tells Jared that Arathon is safe as long as Ilera's far away and not called back for Koreani business.
Yeah, I noticed that line too, and I was like, "Oh, what's up with that?"
I think they've misunderstood that entirely. I think they've missed, like, they're taking that as the cue, but they've moved on to something else. So it does seem like they've maybe missed something there.
But also in the strands they cast earlier, and maybe some scrying they've done since, when, what's the name of that, the one with the raven, why can't I remember his name? Trait, yes. When he visits Ilera at some point in the second book, he tells her that she's important and her life is closely tied to Arathon. And wasn't there something else that said that she could be his downfall also? I don't remember, but is that what the Fellowship is harking back to, do you think? Or is it tied to what Moriel's plotting currently will bring about?
Yes.
Questions.
Good question.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was my thinking, is that the warning of Allura is from both sides, both from the Fellowship and the strength of the relationship, how it can mess things up, but also from Moriel's point of view, that actually Allura, being who she is, they sort of wanted to use her in some ways for the downfall, but also know that it will also be a threat to the Koreani as a race or a group of people.
I kind of feel at the moment there's too many prophecies of him dying in different ways. Like, you've got the one with, as you said, Illyria, you've got the one with the kid that presumably is going to be 10, 15 years ahead. You've now got the one in the shipyard that she's trying to bring her out more immediately. And then you've also got the one where he's being hung in the yard. Not all of those can be true. I mean, it doesn't give him much. If he escapes one, maybe or another will get him, but they can't all happen.
Well, important is, Jarrett's doesn't give us any idea of time.
Yeah, but if he's dead in ships, he can't be dead somewhere else.
but none of them, like Jarrett's one, doesn't actually show him down. They just show him in stocks. They just, and he's trying to avoid that eventuality.
Actually, none of them show him actually dying. Just mortal danger, right? Like even the one with the unicorn. Well, maybe the prophecy comes with certainty that is not clear in the visions, but what you said, Chris, that Jarrett sees him in the stocks, Dakar sees the unicorn coming to kill him, and Arathon raising a Lethiel in defense, but not the conclusion of that. At least we aren't shown that information, but maybe Dakar has some side certainty that comes with the prophecy. I don't know. But
one thing I did want to say, actually, that struck me, because again, don't want to be too much of a shill, but listening to your bright threads about Lethiel, the fact that the Miscreant takes over Arathon and gives him mage sight at the time when he thought Lethiel was going to be used by somebody else. I don't think that's anywhere near a coincidence at all, that the Miscreant is linked to Lethiel in a lot of ways. You kind of said it in your bright threads thing as well, and so far as Lethiel chooses the person that takes it. And I remember you saying that. I remember going, oh, this has got to be really important. And then here's another example.
And he also uses it when Lysair curses him at that at the coronation ceremony. But I have this image of Lysair up high and Arathon down low, and he raises Lethiel in defense, and that's what the fact that Lethiel's wards go off is what tells the Fellowship that it's the Miscreant doing whatever Lysair is doing, right? That he was defending himself righteously. So yeah, that it is interesting. So I guess the Lethiel will be a clue as long as someone's carrying a sword. That the Miscreant, and he does accuse Dakar, sort of almost accusingly say you had to use a Lethiel, or maybe it was out of fear that something happened that he wasn't aware of. because of which Dakar needed to wield Alethea. Yeah.
It definitely felt more of him being. It became more scary for him that he'd had to use that or had to get that to solve it.
Yeah, the car had reached for it, to try to, break him out of his fit.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, crap. Because we saw the last time he got overtaken at the end of Ships when Jarrett was wrestling with him, while he was conscious. And, I guess the idea is like, oh, yeah, I'm sleepwalking and it's taken me over and I'm just, willy-nilly attacking people.
Yeah. I mean, that must be so scary for Arathon. Like, after all he's done to protect himself, and he's like trying desperately hard not to kill himself because of.
Yeah. Well, I have a slight issue with the way Arathon was trying to protect himself. Because he was, they're trying to stay under the radar, so to speak. And then he's kind of gets up there as a bard singing, these songs and basically giving himself away when all he had to do was stay a little quiet. And, so I'm kind of like, all right, why are you doing this? Unless you can't help yourself, but
well, I think that's what it was. It was the tie-in of that to the death of all of those people. I think that he just kind of lost control of himself.
It was very heartfelt and very emotional and all that stuff. But I'm like,
he threw his head back or something. It was almost like he lost control of himself. Just
I'm
exactly
like, somebody shut him up and get him off the stage.
Yeah, because no, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was going to say because that's kind of one thing I think thinking about previously. Like, are there like a bunch of bards that go around, or can you literally is he like the only bard? In which case, like, he'd be pretty easy to track because he's like the only one that's going around being this awesome at what he does, and people do know that he was the whatever to the actual master bard. So it's kind of like, you're right, it's a bit of an obvious thing to do, even if he is disguised, because the people who are tracking him aren't just common people who wouldn't be aware of that. So they could just be like, hey, was there a great bard in town today? So, yeah.
Well, there is, I don't think he actually, runs around, openly proclaiming himself Master Bard, even though, especially in this instance. But Dakar and Kale both, remark that, when they hear the widow who asks him to sing the lament, where Kale's like, he'll refuse her, and Dakar's like, yeah, I can't do that. That will set off a riot. Because, but we do know there are other bards, because we met one in Curse.
Okay, then that makes more sense then.
So there are others about. We just don't run into them very often. Free singers and bards and whatnot.
So Lysa has outlawed sorcery because, Arathon. Does he not know about Arathon being a bard, or that? I mean, because we saw him do that in Ships, where he went from town to town as a bard. But I don't know if Lysa has that information, because I feel like if he did, he'd either outlaw bardery or
evil minstrels.
Varsha wants to ban all rap music. That's it.
My best impression is for out of the instance in J-Lot was, basically the information got out is, like if you're there in J-Lot, you know the details that, hey, it was a master bard and his apprentice, and his apprentice leveled the city. But outside of the city, it's more like, yeah, there was a minstrel and an apprentice, hanging around, and then the apprentice, just like leveled half the city, and he had dark hair, and that's like all the information that really got out.
But back in it's not chapter in Ships, when he used his Master Bard magic, so to speak, that was when he revealed himself as being where he was, his location was. But I don't think Lysa knows that exactly as you say, Varsha. He doesn't seem to be aware that the music is magic in the same way that his casting the shadow and all that kind of stuff is. But I have to say, from my point of view, I loved having a music magic scene again. There hadn't been one in a long time. It was just those are so brilliant to read every time.
Can't get enough of those.
This is very linked to something, because obviously Chibi, you linked the song that's played at that time, because it's not directly fully in the books. But my question about that was, it doesn't it, because it's meant to be such a like resonating song with people, and it's meant to like, it must be quite hard to write it, because surely it's got to be such a magical, powerful thing that it's kind of hard to put that down on paper and have people believe that that would rouse people. So I think it must be quite a struggle to try and reflect that in actual writing of music. I don't know.
Like a mortal,
I
but
would
not for
agree. I
Janny.
mean, yeah, it's a question we can throw at her, but yeah, because we just have the lyrics too, so we don't have any of the sheet music to go along with it, because that'll be part of it. Like, just as aside, like something I saw someone discussing where they're judging something based on just the script, and I'm like, but you don't have the acting or the music or the cinematography or anything else to to go. So it's like you can't really judge it on just the script or just the words, as it were. I mean, to some degree you can for a song, but you kind of need the music too.
I like that we're told that the people in the bar might riot because they'll eventually realize that he wasn't just decrying the Shadow Master, he was also laying blame at Lysair's feet. I like that he did that, because Arathon has been carrying a lot of guilt and I guess just general grief at what happened at the end of Warhost. But he's clear thinking enough to not just blame himself for all of it. He is setting the blame at Lysair's feet as well. I thought I liked that he's not just a long suffering tragic person. He knows whom to blame.
Yeah, but he can't do that. He can't get up on that stage and give himself away like that. That's
Yeah. Oh, he should.
reckless behavior.
That's true. And Dakar and K will rush him out of there as soon as the song is over.
Yeah.
But is that
I was going to say, you've got to remember that at the heart of it, and I think way back, he always just wanted to be a musician. That was all that he ever wanted to be. And he's completely helpless to the fact that that's who he is at heart. So if somebody give him an open door and an opportunity, because you got to remember as well, the car was really worried at that time about how he would respond to it and how it would almost end up as a fight in the bar. And he leaned into it and then kind of went somewhere else with it that led to another terrible situation afterwards. But that's who he is as a person. And I think a lot of this, like I say, is about at the heart of it, these characters are who they are, and their decisions follow that path, for right or for wrong.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Well, to get back to Lysair, I thought was very interesting. One of you guys mentioned earlier about how he's totally alone now, and that was, and there was a line in here that said, "Arathon's ruin became the last thing in life to have meaning."
Yeah,
and I was like, wow, that's powerful, because it makes Lysair even more much of, like, it puts him into that villain role even more, because if that's all he wants is somebody else's ruin, then he doesn't have much else to go for. That's actually kind of really tragic.
Sadly, the best person for him in that case is somebody with a heart of compassion, and that's the one person he can't even be near. In a lot of ways, how that sort of thing comes full circle, and that he needs people around him that will see him for who he is and the struggles that he is going through, but obviously they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, and he kind of does have new allies with the Coriani, but he's not going to trust them.
Yes, but they stole a lock of his hair.
Yes,
that's right.
I wonder what they want with that.
Yeah, they did.
With friends like that, God damn
it. So yeah, he shouldn't trust them, and
because I don't think But they're just using each other. It's not really an alliance. Well, I guess that's what an alliance is, but it's not a friendship alliance or a partnership.
Oh,
It's just
absolutely, yeah,
using each other to get to their means.
So here's a question I have, because this is what I thought, and it's usually when I'm reading this book, I'm reading it going, I think I understand that what's happening there, and often because there's not an awful lot said explicitly, about the finer details. So the visit to Lysair happens before the Lorenda chapter. I assume that it is Lorenda who showed herself to Lysair, and that was just filling in the backstory and basically the next chapter then of her discovering about Muriel's plot beforehand.
That's what I assumed as well. But actually, how
Yeah.
she was described was a little bit older than I thought she looked previously.
So
I
maybe
don't.
it could have been like a way later version of her going back in time and stuff through this. Like,
Whoa.
Could be, but I think Jenny has said, chapter to chapter runs sequentially. So,
oh, right, okay.
That's right.
There's no backtracking.
Yeah, no, that's right, Chibibo. There isn't any backtracking in here because we actually had a scene later on that it reinforces
that was like construct or someone carrying out Muriel's orders before via the
I thought it was
constructed,
because the scene where Lorenda goes in to try to see what happened to Muriel Prime, I love how Janny did that scene because we're seeing what's going on in the world through that spell, and we're seeing events that's not from Arathon's POV or Lysair's POV or any. You see it through Lorenda, seeing through the spell the events that are continually going on, and I loved how Janny did that because, like she said, there's no backtracking. She doesn't backtrack. She doesn't go like, next chapter, go back and say, here's what happened while this was going on. She never does that, and I love how she gave us what was happening through that scene where she's trying to, see what happened to the Muriel Prime. It's beautifully done.
Nice. I'm glad I asked because actually I'd forgotten about that, Jared. That's
yeah.
Okay.
I also love that what you said earlier, Robin, the perspective we got on the laying of the construct from Muriel. It was, and how we saw Lorenda interpret that. We were seeing the same thing, right? Sort of from both angles, but it was done so differently, and we got like completely different views on how the Koreani magecraft works. And I guess we got more finer details as Lorenda was trying to interpret what was going on. And I loved sort of reading about her, how she feels unequal to doing something similar, and that she's not capable of the same self-sacrifice that Muriel did in laying this construct. What you said, Jared, again, I love the characterization of Lorenda, and I loved all these musings. It was a wonderful chapter. I think when we're reading a book that tracks so many different places and different characters, I usually have one thing that I like reading less than the others, like and the Koreani chapters were those for me, but this chapter was so beautifully done. Now I'm like, I'll read Koreani chapters with as much enthusiasm.
Yeah, but I think they have definitely been a slow burn. Like you didn't really have, as she's gone up, she's built more and more and more around it. Like even to now, I can't even remember where it was, but when the Prime, you see her choosing her page boys and everything else in the background about that, and then how they get to go into service afterwards, and you just slowly getting this like picture, just slowly put together. I think it's just I think I was the same. I was a bit kind of like I didn't really like them as much, but now it's kind of they're much more interesting, kind of seeing the way. But again, it was quite interesting to see that essentially for this spell, which if the Seven were to do, probably wouldn't have troubled them too much, was like the biggest thing that the Korathini have ever done. She essentially gave her life for it and had to use their biggest crystal. So again, it just shows you the kind of levels between them, which is quite interesting. I also like how it explicitly, when she goes back to look at the spell, it explicitly shows you what went wrong with the initiate like basically putting her hand through it and saying she didn't want to give up her life for it, because it was when she was setting it up, you kind of assumed that what was happened, but it didn't give you all the details. So it's quite interesting to go back and have that shown out for you, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But it was so interesting that, you know, the Coriani up to this point have had a chapter here and there, but like you say, Varsha, in terms of they do stuff and you kind of go, so, you know, it doesn't really seem to have any effect. Yet when this happens, as soon as Assandir turns up at Jarrett's house to say he wants to anoint the successor, I mean, typical Janny, brilliant writing. You respect your audience to know what that means. It means that this threat is serious. You know, just by that, it's not Jarrett under threat, even though she does spell it out. So that nothing's going to happen to Jarrett. That as soon as he turns up to name his successor, it's like, oh, actually, this is a credible threat to Arathon at this stage. This is actually a problem that we need to work through. And you go, okay, now the Coriani are to be taken seriously. Every bit that we get from them now will have some meaning.
That's interesting, because that's interesting that you put it together that way, with where Assander's doing that specifically. Because I kind of thought that he's always supposed to name heirs, like the Fellowship sorcerers are kind of have done that in the past continually. So do you think maybe he upped the timeline a little bit?
Well, I think two things are happening. I think one, I think this is Janny narratively letting us know that this is to be respected as a threat, because other people in the story are taking a threat. It's not a threat unless other people take notice of it, you know, and also alluding us to the fact that the Fellowship are completely aware of everything that's going on here at all times. Like nothing's going to happen in the dark to them, but also, you know, setting up the fact that this, you know, even us as the reader have to start taking this threat seriously, the Arathon. You know,
well, on that note, there's a very interesting line in the news items for chapter 6 there. The second second news item, where it says where is it? While a Fellowship ward of protection is smashed wholesale. And I'm like, how did that happen? And it had just before that, it mentioned that Coriani Senior is gathered whispering around a white crystal. And so is that a result of this whole white crystal spell thing that is interfering with what the Fellowship wards are doing? And how could and it relates to what you just said about them taking the Coriani more seriously and having a bigger problem with them than originally they thought.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh my god, I need to read on.
And they've released the Kadrim, it looks like, possibly, or some other kind of winged creature.
Yeah, that was smashing the wards on the Sorcerer's Preserve.
Naughty.
Yeah. It's so strange every time. Like I read these 2 chapters from it. I don't know if they really understood what was going on there. 2, it feels like we're in a holding pattern at the moment. And then you come and speak to everybody here, and you're like, "Oh, these are like the 3 most important chapters in the book." I feel like every 2 weeks I have exactly that feeling.
That's what we said last time. Yeah, right.
Oh God.
Yeah. So we got a bit of Muriel's backstory with her brothers. That was a little heart-wrenching, I thought, because I feel like we're so primed to sort of dislike her plotting. Well, at least I am. And we get a bit of a backstory, and even Lyrenda, when with all her ambition and self-awareness notwithstanding, she's not a very likable person, but then she has that moment when she thinks about what Arathon can do for her humanity, so to speak. and I felt really sorry for her. So yeah, I love those little tidbits to think of them as more human and not just these female shaped objects who are plotting against Arathon. And yeah. New question. the construct that Muriel's laying, she wants revenge against the Fellowship for what they did with the Waystone, but is it also because of this crying she did towards the end of the previous book, where she saw the threat that Arathon was to the Order, and so she wanted to take him out of the equation for Lyranda's sake? Is that still the major motivator for what's going on here, or is she just trying to hurt Arathon because the Fellowship wants to keep him alive?
Well, I have a little bit of a question here that relates to something you said earlier, Varsha. So you know how you don't like premonitions that are then caused by premonitions. I did think, because if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, she thinks that Arathon's going to bring an end to basically the Prime, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, if she dies setting this spell up,
Yeah.
and then Lorenda isn't able to learn what she still needs to learn, hasn't that effectively done that?
Yeah.
So that was I had that thought process. I was like, is she not fulfilling her own prophecy on that side? I don't know if I misunderstood something there.
You may be right there, but if that's the case, why is the Fellowship so concerned about Alara becoming the Prime?
Oh, they think Ilera can become Prime?
No, I think that was just me. I thought she was going to come Prime.
Luhane, I think it's Luhane,
that if she
speculate that, Alara has the spirit that she could survive, the trial, because they were
and they were concerned. I think it was the end of chapter 4. They were concerned. Well, maybe it was chapter 5. I'm not sure. I don't remember now.
Oh, I think they were
where after they met with Muriel.
Yeah, they think that Ilera has the strength or ability to take over, to become Prime, but that she wouldn't be what they want because she has such so much empathy for Arathon.
Yeah, I think he said something along the lines of like, it's quite good they've kind of looked her over because she does have the ability and strength to be the Prime. I think it's set up like that.
Yeah. And as Sander at the end of chapter 6 says, until the Coriani initiate named Alara is pressed back into service by her order, your prince should be fare well enough under Dakar's wards and protection. So what is it about her that Arathon would not fare well if she was pressed back into service?
I don't necessarily think it's anything, the obvious advantage is, you have the Coriani have Alara and, have their, oaths, her oath of, obedience to the Coriani order, that they can hold over her head as a threat. And, Arathon's in love with her, and so threaten her life, as he said in Ships, all the things that he could do, if he, being the instrument of her destruction or the cause for it would be the one he couldn't bear. So just holding that over her head as a threat, it's like,
right, from the Fellowship point of view. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, but if she, were to become Prime, they're considering, it's like, well, the Coriani are annoying, working at cross purposes to us, and Arathon is, argumentative and, troublesome enough on his own. Now he's got the entire Coriani working with him, and it, becomes even more argumentative and, whatnot. So.
All these personalities coming into play.
Was there anything else in these chapters?
There was the whole bit around the slaves.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So you get the, because you have it kind of like talked about but not really seen, that right at the very end, Arathon shows to Car, the ships where they can see them being slaves, and then you see. This is where I might need a little bit of explaining, because it seems like one part of the empire or one area is not going with Lysa's rule on it and is helping to free the slaves. Is what I took away from that.
Havish, is that what it is?
That's under
Yeah.
King Eldir,
Eldir, yeah.
Eldir's
So
rule.
was he the guy that previously sent the
Ambassador, yeah.
ambassador?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, right.
up
Yeah.
to speed. Thank you.
Yeah, he sent the message up. He's like, yeah, slave bearing galleys are not, not allowed, and anyone who gets caught within his kingdom's waters or borders, with slaves, will be arrested, and no, I'm not going to extradite them to you.
Yeah, because there's that bit at the end where he's basically refused extradition twice, hasn't he, already? So
Yeah.
kind of felt like there was maybe a little separate mini war potentially going to be happening.
I hate to be this person to kind of say this, but when you read stories and you think some stories are as old as time. I mean, this story about these people being wiped out is basically the story of genocide, and it is genocide by a person who basically rules the world here, rules the myth. And there are pockets of people who are standing up for the oppressed and doing their bit for the good. But like, it just blows my mind the more time that you read stories like this and go, like, I look at the news and kind of go, well, all of these themes are still so present.
Yeah. Oh, and to answer your question, Varsha, about Moriel and whether she wants Aerithon dead or whatever, she kind of still doesn't want him dead, but her focus is, while she'd prefer him dead, she wants him captured now because she wants to use him as a bargaining chip to make the Fellowship, free the Waystone, because even though they told her that it's like, no, we can't do what you're asking, but she wants to try to force them to.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think I forgot that she's not trying to kill him now. She just wants to capture him. Yeah. I like how Lyrenda thinks to herself that she'll see the end of Arathon if the Prime dies, because it's as if he asked for this trap to be set on him.
Yeah, because she is concerned about the vision she saw, of seeing her own death, but that's this could happen, and if we leave him running, she believes if she leaves him running wild that it will. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Well, back to Robin's question about what was going on with Havish and somebody, like, what was the deal that Arathon had with the shipwright Cadric?
Oh, just remembered something else about that as well. Sorry.
Because
he's
we
going to
get
betray them.
Yeah, we get
Yeah.
that little hint that he's under Coriani influence,
Yeah.
and he's going to betray him, or he's worried about it. He's got his head in his hands and stuff. And so I don't remember exactly what he was doing for Arathon.
I couldn't work it out.
was he not the one recruiting people to the seafaring kind of thing? He's recruiting people and workers and building ships and steaming ships.
Yeah,
And
he was
that
building
kind of stuff,
ships, and I think it was for Arathon that he was doing this stuff.
Yeah,
but I don't remember exactly what Arathon's end game was with dealing with this guy.
I think he wanted him to build ships for him. Arathon's been once he had built enough ships to cover the damage at Mindle Bay, all the ships from then on, Arathon was going to steal, I think. And I guess the betrayal was that he already wrote to Lyser and informed him that people are stealing his ships, and they're not just sinking for bad reasons. But I don't know if his betrayal goes deeper than that. That's what I read into it. But Chibi Poke can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, he's. I mean, just like with Marior, because he was one there. He's just basically he's paying him, and Catric's gotten to know him well enough that he's, willing to work with him. and then but yes, he does have a Coriolanotha debt, hanging over his head, and but basically, he's applied for master shipwright at Lazare's shipyard, and so he's just sitting there using Lazare's wood and resources and whatnot to build ships, and then the ships get crewed, and then they just sail out on their maiden voyage and disappear.
Okay, that makes sense, because I'd also missed that link. I was like, is he just making really bad ships and they sink? What
He's making good ships that Arathon's then stealing.
yeah, that makes sense, because they're going to give them to the guys that are getting stolen as slaves so that they don't have to get headhunted anymore.
Yeah.
That's the whole plan. I think.
All right, that all makes sense now. Yeah.
So Arathon's building a fleet that it seems like could become a pirate fleet, and Lyser, I don't know what he's doing with his ships, just trade. But yeah, he the Mindel Bay ships that they lost were all trader ships, right?
Rebuild all the fleet, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to also have another parallel with what we left at Dasanilur, where Arathon's people are all pirates, and Lysers are the righteous traders.
Well, Lysair also wanted these ships as well, because he received the lost arts of ocean navigation.
That's right.
In chapter 6 there.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty important. This scientific knowledge coming back, I guess, with the release of the mist wraith over the land.
But as at the triplet at the end there, we know Lazare's left to Tara.
But he's coming back with Arathon still at Riverton.
Yep.
And Arathon's refusing to leave. Oh, I had a question about Jared's sight. Is it that I kind of got the impression from the end of Curse of the Mistwraith that what Jared sees will happen? So, or is it something that they can still affect? Because Arathon, in Curse, Arathon tried to figure out the best way so that the least number of clansmen will be killed. And Jared already knew that his parents were going to die because of his visions from having sight. But they both knew that there wasn't anything they can do about it. So I was wondering whether it's always like that with Jared, that what he sees will happen. But then if that's true, then he'd just be upset and not try to do anything to get Arathon out of difficult situations, I guess. So
I think his RA, this will happen because Stephen remarks on it at some point that it's given to them. They of his line, they have sight, and that they'll see that they foresee their own death. So Stephen knew he was going to die, and he knew it was going to be soon when he met Arathon, because he had foreseen the those swearing and seeing the scar on Arathon's palm and whatnot, and then at some point Jarrett has foreseen his own death, but hasn't talked about it to anyone. So we don't know what or when that might happen. But as far as for other people, I think it's more of a it's like if it's not him involved personally, I think it's more of a this may happen, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. I love the scene in which Asandi named the air. That was so beautiful.
Yeah. Big fan.
Mm-hmm.
It was just great to see because, again, there is this habit of you go, there's something missing from this book as you're making your way through the chapters, and then you get to a chapter and go, oh, yes, all the fellowship. I'm not a fellowship chapter. And 3 or 4 or 5 chapters, and then you get one along, even if it's just one character, and you go, well, that adds so much to the story because there's an awful lot going on here. And as usual, there always, but everybody has their own distinctive voice when it comes to how they're written. And, even at the start, when there's kind of like you don't know it's Ascendir for the first couple of paragraphs, and you're like, "Who is it? It sounds like Ascendir." It's that kind of thing is going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So I'm hoping that we'll be getting some more Lady Talith later, maybe,
Yes, that's what I'm hoping for. I think.
and see what Arathon gets up to with her. But remains to be seen.
Yeah. Oh, there was a line just mentioned in passing that I thought Lyser had Talith locked up, but apparently she's gone missing.
No, I think it was. Oh, I think it was that people hadn't seen her for a while.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
She's
I thought,
been confined for poor health.
but hasn't
Into seclusion.
Lyser? Oh, are we getting that from somebody else's perspective then? That in the scene with where we talk about the candle and stuff and how alone he is, there was something about. Yeah, maybe that was in his perspective then. Because I thought Lyser was thinking to himself that she's disappeared.
No, there's the scene when they get back from Caithtar where Arathon's like, or someone's like, Talith confined for poor health or, gone into seclusion or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I don't believe that. Or off the top of my head, what Lysair was thinking in the, in his moping scene, but
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah, it was a message from Bridian, Espridian Mirren,
yes,
that was sent by Arathon, that the note requests the inquiry into the disappearance of Lady Talith, and the reason why she disappears because Lysair is keeping her locked up.
But
for-
there was
for her
something from with Lyser that I was wondering about. I'll try and find it. We can talk about it afterwards. But is there anything else that we should discuss?
I think we're good.
No? Okay, then let's do outros. Chris, do you want to go first?
First, my name is Chris Mohan. I run a YouTube channel called Chris Mohan, imaginatively titled, and I sometimes appear in the page tune forums. Jared, you're up.
I am. Okay, I'm Jared. I run the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and I am also on pagechewing.com, and you can find me. You can contact me there anytime. Robin?
Hi, or goodbye, not hi. I'm Robin, and I have a small Twitchy channel called Book Ends and Biscuits. You can find me on the Page Stream forum or occasionally on Twitter/X. Chibi?
Right, hi, or bye. I'm Chibi. Chibi Po. I do not have a YouTube channel, unlike everyone else. But I can be found on Page Chewing and Twitter, and as of recently, Blue Sky, because I got a code. Woohoo!
Nice. And you also are maintaining a mega playlist of all Wars of Light and Shadow plus Janny Wurts videos.
Yes. Okay. So I do have something on my YouTube channel. Yeah, a gigantic, enormous, playlist of things that I keep trying to remember to try to organize, but I add new videos and then I forget about it, and I'm like, I gotta organize this. Dragging them around on a playlist is a huge pain. Trying to organize them like that. So I need a better way to organize videos.
I wish we could do playlist folders, put playlists inside playlists.
Yeah, that would be so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, like these are all Wars of Light and Shadow playlists, like folders for playlists. That would be nice. Anyway, we are going to meet 2 weeks from now to discuss the next 3 chapters. The schedule after that we'll decide, because there's going to be 5 chapters left, and we have to talk about whether to do 3 and 5 or 5 all at a time. But until then, if you're reading along with us, if you'd like to hang out with us on the Patreon forum, consider signing up there. Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Sure.